Okay, let's think about this. What if the real secret, the key to building a massively successful brand isn't about having the biggest marketing budget?
Right, or, mastering the latest AI or getting on the hottest tech platform first.
Exactly. What if it's
Beautiful.
actually something, well, way more fundamental?
Yeah.
Like just genuine human passion.
That is precisely the core idea we're going to dive into today. It's pretty radical.
Okay.
And our insights are coming mainly from business consultant Ari Masudi. He has this great masterclass called Community-Driven Entrepreneurship, Building Empires with Volunteers.
Building empires with volunteers. Okay, so our mission here, especially if you're, a startup founder, maybe in marketing or just building any kind of brand, is to really unpack what Masudi's getting at. How companies, and we're talking startups and big established players, are turning their actual customers into co-creators, fans into founders, building whole movements with people who are passionate and, importantly, unpaid volunteers.
It sounds almost counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It really does. But we want to show you this isn't just some abstract theory. It's like a shortcut to understanding a really powerful new competitive advantage. Could change how you approach things.
Definitely. So let's get into that core idea. Masudi talks about this volunteer revolution.
Okay.
He basically challenges the old way, where businesses just burn through tons of cash trying to acquire customers, running ads constantly.
The traditional playbook.
Exactly. And instead, he points out that some of today's really successful brands, they built their empires using what he calls armies of passionate volunteers who worked for free.
Armies of volunteers. It almost sounds, well, too good to be true.
Right. But he lays out some pretty compelling evidence.
What's really powerful here, I think, is this idea Masudi has of the community-first mindset.
Ah, yes, that's key.
Because think about it, if you're an entrepreneur, especially early on, you're always dealing with tight resources.
Always. Need developers, need marketing, need brand buzz.
But the budget's screaming bootstrap mode.
Exactly. So this community-first idea, it just flips that whole script. Masudi argues you don't necessarily need millions for those top-tier developers or that huge ad spend if you've built a really engaged community.
Okay, give us an example. How does this work in practice?
Well, the classic one he uses is Emily Weiss and Glossier. Glossier Inc., huge beauty brand now.
Of course, billion-dollar company.
Right. But before all that, Weiss didn't have some massive pile of VC money for marketing. What she did have was her blog, Into the Gloss.
Ah, right. I remember that. Very influential.
Totally. And her readers, they weren't just passive. Masudi frames them as like co-conspirators.
Co-conspirators. I like that.
They were openly sharing their beauty routines. They were testing product ideas. They were telling their friends about the brand. And this was all happening before Glossier even launched and, without anyone getting a paycheck for it.
That's fascinating. But I can hear some people thinking, unpaid labor. Doesn't that raise questions about, well, exploitation, especially when a brand like Glossier scales so fast?
Yeah. That's a really important point, and Masudi addresses it direct. He emphasizes it's fundamentally not exploitation if it's done right.
So?
Because when Glossier finally launched its products, it wasn't just some corporate rollout. He describes it as a genuine community celebration.
Because they were already invested.
Exactly. These volunteers, these readers, they had a real emotional stake in its success. Masudi stresses it all comes down to alignment. Deep alignment around a shared purpose or passion.
Okay.
When you create something people genuinely believe in or connect with, they want to volunteer their time. They want to be part of something bigger. It's driven by that shared passion, that sense of belonging, not coercion.
Right, so it's tapping into something deeper than just getting free work. It's about shared identity.
Precisely. It's finding that overlap between what the brand stands for and what the community cares about.
So if it's not just pure altruism, like volunteering for a charity, what really drives these modern volunteers, Masudi must have some insights there.
We tend to think of volunteering as, civic duty. Yeah, he definitely challenges that narrow view. The data he points to highlights 5 really interesting drivers, and the numbers are quite surprising.
Okay, let's hear them.
All right, so a huge one. 87% are motivated by skill development. They want to learn or practice something.
87%. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Then 73% are looking for networking, connecting with people who share their interests.
Makes sense. Building connections.
Then, critically important, 91% need to genuinely believe in the cause or the mission. That purpose alignment we talked about.
91. That's almost everyone.
It's fundamental. Then you've got 68% seeking creative expression, a chance to contribute their unique talents. And finally, a big one, 84% value recognition and status for what they
84% for recognition.
Yeah.
So being seen and valued is key.
Yeah.
It's a really complex mix, isn't it? Personal growth, community, purpose, creativity, status.
Absolutely. It's not just one thing. And smart companies tap into all these motivations.
Can you give an example of a company really really nailing that, tapping into those diverse drivers.
Yeah. Think about the lomography movement. Remember those quirky analog cameras?
Oh yeah, Lomo. Very cool kind of cult following.
Exactly. That Austrian company didn't just sell cameras. They deliberately, meticulously fostered this global community of photography nuts.
How did they do it?
Well, these enthusiasts, these volunteers, they didn't just wait for instructions. They started organizing their own photo walks, exhibitions, workshops. They created tons of content, shared techniques.
Wow.
And they essentially spread the whole lomographic philosophy, as they called it, across the globe. They weren't just customers. Masudi would say they were acting as unpaid cultural ambassadors for the brand, building the movement themselves.
That's a brilliant example of that shift, isn't it? When your customers become this active force for the brand without being on the payroll.
Yes. And Masudi calls this the brand volunteer phenomenon. He thinks it's maybe the most fascinating evolution happening right now.
Customers so passionate they just give their time, their skills, their energy without expecting money back.
It sounds crazy, but it happens. And one of the most really striking examples he uses is Honda.
Honda, the car company. How do they use volunteers?
Okay, get this. They ran a campaign called Next Door, and they basically turned people's personal garages into temporary Honda dealers.
Wait, what? Seriously?
Yeah.
People let strangers come to their house to look at cars?
Yep. These were car enthusiasts, Honda fans. They volunteered their own homes, their garages, to showcase new Honda models to their neighbors, their friends, people in their local area. These weren't employees, just passionate customers.
That is wild. I mean, the trust involved there. What happened?
The results, according to Masudi's sources, were kind of staggering. In the areas where these volunteers were active, Honda saw sales increases of up to 40%.
40%. Just from garage demos.
Yeah, because think about it. It's the ultimate, authentic, trust-based marketing, right? It's your neighbor showing you a car they love in their own space.
Yeah.
No pressure. It's genuine enthusiasm. It's like word-of-mouth marketing supercharged.
You just can't replicate that with a traditional ad campaign. Turning garages into dealerships. Incredible.
Right. It really flips the model. And, connecting this to maybe a more established, long-running example, think about Disney.
Disney. Okay, how do they fit in?
Well, they have this program called Plan Disney. It used to be called the Disney Parks Moms Panel.
Oh, right. I've heard of that. People who help you plan your Disney trips.
Exactly.
Yeah.
These are super passionate Disney fans, experts really, and they volunteer their time to provide incredibly detailed vacation planning advice to other families for free.
Why? What's in it for them? Just the love of Disney.
That's a big part of it, sure. But Masudi points out, being selected for Plan Disney, it's seen as a real badge of honor.
Ah, so that recognition and status piece again.
Absolutely. It's public recognition of their deep expertise. Plus, they get some perks, insider access maybe, but mostly it's the satisfaction of sharing their passion and helping other families have magical trips.
And Disney gets
Yeah.
expert-level customer service and planning advice without massively scaling up their own support staff.
Precisely. It's a total win-win, built entirely on that shared passion and the volunteers' desire for recognition and contribution.
Okay, so we've seen examples from established giants like Honda and Disney. But you mentioned earlier this is crucial for startups.
Oh, absolutely essential, Masudi.
Why more so for them?
Well, startups usually lack that established brand recognition, right? They don't have huge marketing budgets. So from day one, they have to create something that people feel is worth volunteering for. They need to build that passion magnet immediately.
So can you share a startup example that really nailed this, according to Masudi?
Brewdog, Scottish brewery. They're kind of a legendary case study in this area.
Brewdog. Yeah, known for being disruptive. How do they use volunteers?
They did something really clever with their funding. They ran these crowdfunding campaigns called Equity for Punk.
Right, selling shares directly to customers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it wasn't just about raising money. By doing that, they cultivated this massive global community of brand evangelists who literally owned a piece of the company.
So they had skin in the game.
Totally. These equity punks, as they called them, became more than just investors. They acted like a proactive volunteer army.
What did they do?
They were everywhere, promoting Brewdog on social media, recommending the beers to friends, reviewing products, even helping scout locations for new Brewdog bars around the world.
Wow. So Brewdog didn't just raise capital. They built this built-in, highly motivated volunteer marketing and development team.
That's exactly it. They built a loyal community with a deep vested interest in seeing the company succeed. And the numbers Masudi cites are pretty impressive.
Let's hear them.
Over 200,000 equity punk investors globally. They raised something like £73 million directly through these campaigns. And at its peak, the company was valued at over £2 billion. A lot of that global expansion was fueled directly by this community advocate.
That's powerful stuff.
Yeah.
But does it always have to be a formal program like Equity for Punks?
Not at all. And that's another key insight. Sometimes the most powerful volunteer communities just emerge organic.
Like how?
Think about the French fashion brand, Cezanne. Masoudi talks about their Cezanne sisterhood.
Cezanne sisterhood. Sounds intriguing.
It was totally spontaneous. These incredibly devoted customers started calling ourselves Cezannettes.
Ha, cute.
They just took it upon themselves to create private Facebooks. They started organizing clothing swaps amongst themselves, sharing styling advice, coordinating purchases. They built this entire secondary ecosystem around the brand.
All on their own. The company didn't initiate it?
Nope. The founder, Morgane Cezallery, she didn't orchestrate. According to Masoudi, she simply focused on creating a brand and products that were, well, worthy of that level of devotion.
So the lesson there is, sometimes you don't need a program, you just need a brand people genuinely fall in love with.
Exactly. Sometimes the best volunteer programs are the ones you don't even have to start yourself. They bubble up naturally from pure brand love. No recruitment needed.
Which leads nicely into this idea of the spontaneous volunteer.
Right. Yes. Not everyone who adds huge value needs to be formally brought in or managed within a structure. Sometimes people just step up out of pure passion.
Cut an example of that.
Yeah, Masoudi tells this great story about an indie video game called Eingana.
Eingana.
Okay, never heard of it.
Probably not. It was pretty small. But when it launched, this French elementary school teacher became completely obsessed with it, just loved the game.
Okay, so what did he do?
He just spontaneously started organizing demonstrations of the game at electronics stores all across France, on his own time, with his own resources.
No way. The company didn't ask him to.
Not at all. He wasn't affiliated with them in any way. He was just so genuinely enthusiastic. He wanted other people to discover it.
Think about the impact of that kind of authentic grassroots energy.
It's priceless, right?
Yeah.
Masoudi argues that kind of spontaneous action is often far more valuable, far more credible than any planned marketing campaign because it's driven by pure, unadulterated passion.
Money just can't buy that kind of authentic. People can sniff out manufactured buzz a mile away. But genuine passion, it's magnetic. It's infectious.
Okay, that Eingana story is fantastic. That raw enthusiasm is undeniable. But what if you do want to be more intense? What if you want to actively cultivate that kind of engagement and build a volunteer engine for your brand? Does Masoudi offer any kind of practical framework?
He absolutely does. He doesn't just observe the phenomenon. He provides a toolkit. He outlines 7 key levers that he says consistently drive volunteer involvement and engagement.
Ooh, okay, a toolkit. Let's break those down. What's lever number 1?
First, recognition and gratitude. Simple but critical. It's not just about saying thanks. It's about sincere appreciation, public shout-outs, maybe exclusive access or small perks. It's that emotional currency.
Right, making people feel seen and valued. Okay, number 2.
Skill utilization. This is crucial. You need to match volunteers with tasks that actually use their unique skills and talents. If you've got a graphic designer volunteering, let them design. Don't just give them data entry.
Makes sense. Play to their strengths. What's third?
Flexibility and autonomy. People are busy, especially volunteers. So you need to create opportunities that fit their schedules, not just yours. Let them contribute in ways and at times that work for them. Give them ownership.
Okay, flexibility. Number 4.
Emotional connection. This is huge. People might come for the cause, but Masoudi says they stay for the community. So you need to actively foster relationships between volunteers and between volunteers and the brand itself. Build that sense of belonging.
Community building. Got it. Number 5.
Moral purpose. Clearly, constantly articulate why their contribution matters. What's the bigger impact? Volunteers need to feel their time and effort are making a real positive difference. Connect their tasks to the mission.
The why. Super important. Okay, 6th.
Respect for all contributions. Recognize every effort, no matter how big or small. The person who shares one tweet is contributing, just like the person organizing a whole event. Value it all.
Acknowledge everything.
Yeah.
Good one. And the last one, number 7.
Pride and participation. This ties back to recognition and status. Make volunteering for your brand feel special. Create a sense of exclusivity, prestige, maybe even fun. Make them proud to say, I'm part of this.
Recognition skills, flexibility, connection, purpose, respect, and pride. That's a really solid framework. These aren't just fuzzy concepts. They feel like actionable strategies.
Exactly. There's strategic pathways to unlock that volunteer potential. And the data really backs up the strategic value here. It's not just anecdotal.
Oh, what kind of data are we talking about?
Well, Masoudi cites research, for instance, from the Stanford Social Innovation Review. It found that organizations driven significantly by volunteers tend to grow 3.2 times faster than similar organisms that rely solely on paid staff.
3 times faster.
Wow. Yeah. And a Harvard Business Review study showed that companies with strong, active volunteer communities see, on average, 23% higher customer retention rates.
Higher retention.
And get this, 31% higher customer lifetime value.
31% higher LTV. Look, the numbers really don't lie, do they?
Yeah. Not at all. It hammers home Masoudi's Masuti's point. This isn't just some nice-to-have, feel-good marketing tactic. It's a legitimate, measurable, competitive advantage that hits the bottom line.
So for anyone listening who's thinking, okay, I'm sold, how do I actually do this? Does Masuti offer a roadmap, like how to build this volunteer engine from scratch?
He does. He lays out a pretty clear 4-phase strategic framework, sort of a step-by-step guide.
Excellent. Let's walk through it. What's phase 1?
Phase 1 is foundation building. This is all about setting the stage. First, really define your cause. What's the bigger purpose your business serves beyond just making money?
Finding that why.
Exactly. Then, identify your tribe. Who are the people who naturally connect with that mission, those values? Who are your potential volunteers? And third, create gathering space, places, online or offline, where this tribe can actually connect with each other and with you. Forums, groups, events, whatever fit.
Define the cause, find the tribe, create the space. Okay, solid foundation was phase 2.
Phase 2 is program design. Now you get more specific. Map out the entire volunteer journey. How does someone go from curious observer to active, engaged contributor? What is that path?
Right.
Then design meaningful roles. What specific tasks or projects can volunteers actually do that provide real value to them and to your business? Think back to that skill utilization.
Right, making it worthwhile.
And critically, build your recognitions. How will you consistently and authentically celebrate contribution, big and small? Plan.
Map the journey, design the roles, build the recognition. Got it. Phase 3.
Phase 3, community cultivation. This is the ongoing work. It starts with leading by example. You and your team need to show the passion and commitment you hope to inspire.
Walk the talk, yeah.
Definitely. Then actively facilitate connections between volunteers. Help them build relationships with each other. Make it a real community. And finally, share story. Constantly highlight what volunteers are doing, the impact they're having. Make them the hero.
Lead by example, facilitate connections, share stories. Love that. Okay, final phase, phase 4.
Phase 4 is scale and systematize. As things grow, you need to get organized. Document your best practices, what's working well in engaging volunteers, what isn't, why.
Learn and adapt.
Exactly. Then train community leaders. Empower some of your most engaged volunteers to take on leadership roles, mentoring others, running parts of the program. You can't do it all yourself.
Build capacity within the community.
Precise. And lastly, measure and optimize. Track everything you can, engagement rates, volunteer satisfaction, and crucially, the actual business impact. Use that data to continuously improve your program.
Document, train leaders, measure, and optimize. Yeah. That feels like a really comprehensive roadmap.
It gives you a clear path to follow rather than just hoping volunteers show up.
Yeah. You know, listening to all this, it really feels like we are witnessing a pretty fundamental shift in how businesses get built, how they grow.
I think so too. That old model, very top-down, very capital-intensive, it's giving way to something much more dynamic, more community, fueled by passion.
It feels like smart entrepreneurs today aren't just focused on building products anymore. They're actually building movement.
That's a great way to put it. And the brands that are really going to win in the coming years, Masuti suggests they won't necessarily be the ones with the biggest ad budgets or the slickest commercials.
Who will they be?
They'll be the ones that manage to inspire people, ordinary people, to do extraordinary things for them, not primarily for money, but for meaning, for connection, for being part of something they believe.
It really reframes the whole relationship between a brand and its audience. So maybe the final thought for everyone listening is your customer. They might be waiting for the chance to become your co-creator, your user. They might want to be your biggest advocate, your community. It could be ready to become your most powerful, sustainable, competitive advantage. So the real question isn't, can I afford to invest in building a volunteer community? It's more like, what incredible opportunities am I already missing out on by not actively working to transform my customers into my greatest asset?